Welcome to the Bywords Show. I'm your host, Hannah Hughes. Bywords is all about equipping women for purposeful living by starting conversations, celebrating stories, and inspiring faith. In a world that applauds the hustle, I'm here to help you break free from the lies and come back to what really matters. It's time to get real, get rooted in truth, and come alive in relationship with Jesus so you can show up to each day with intention and confidence no matter where you're at in your story. Here we believe that embracing our stories brings hope, healing, and purpose to the process, and sharing our stories helps others do the same. Whether you're looking for a midweek faith refresh, practical tools for pursuing your dreams, or just need some good old-fashioned girl talk, you're in the right place. Grab your latte and let's dive in. Hey there, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Bywords Show. So happy you're here. Today is the day. This is actually the last solo podcast episode for 2024. And we're just going to hang out and do a Q&A today. I thought it'd be fun to chit chat and catch up and just, wrap it up because it's been a crazy wild year. And I just first have to say, I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for this community. I'm so thankful for the growth that we've seen this year in the Bywords community and on this podcast. And I'm just so grateful for every single guest we've had on the show and every single one of you who is listening. It wouldn't matter without you. So thank you so much for being here. It's been such a sweet year, and I love that we get to just grow and be in the process together. So how to say that first? I've got a few questions that you guys asked on my Instagram story. So let's get into it, shall we? First question is, what's on my Christmas wish list? Just kidding. No one asked that, but I will tell you anyway, because what would mean the world to me is if you would hit pause really quick and go leave a rating and review. It helps the show grow. It's like the best way that you can support Bywords and support me if you love this content for free. Just takes 5 seconds of your time. It would mean the world to me. And then come back and we'll get into these other questions. Okay, let's do it. All right. First question is, how have you seen small groups done well? I love this question. Y'all know I'm super passionate about community. I think it's vital. I think we can't do purpose without people. I say it almost every episode, but truly, if you are not involved in a local church, being an engaged, active part of the body of Christ, first of all, that's your first step. If you want to get engaged in community and do life with people, I know that it's hard. I know that it's messy because we're talking about people and people are messy and people are imperfect, and it can be hard. It can be uncomfortable. It can be vulnerable. And I have been there. I am a huge introvert, which is so funny to me because when I tell people that, most of the time they're shocked to hear that. But I actually am a huge introvert. And so for me, sometimes people can be a lot and I have my boundaries, but I can't do purpose without people. I can't live my life. I can't be healthy, spirit, soul, and body without people in my life who know me, who are holding me accountable, who are praying with me, who are weeping with me, rejoicing with me, going through all the ups and downs of life. We need that. So first step, get plugged into a local church. Second, from there, a small group. I have had some great experiences with small groups. I've had some experiences that were just, average, not life-changing or transformational in any way necessarily. But I will say some of the best experiences I've had with a small group, whether it was connected to my church or just something in my community with other believers and other women or other moms, is consistency. I think really if you want to grow with people, you have to be intentional about actually being with them, right? So it's really hard, I would say. I've been part of groups that meet once or twice a month. And although that's great, that's amazing, it can be really hard to actually build relationships if it's not super consistent. I'm not saying you have to meet every day, but I am saying if you really want to be growing with people and being intentional about building community, meet with people consistently, once a week if you can, twice a month if you can, whatever that looks like for you in this season that is attainable. It's not so much about constant as it is consistent, if that makes sense. So I would say consistency for sure. Second of all, find people who are in similar seasons of life as you, or who have been in similar seasons of life as you. So I think there's so much value in multi-generational groups. Obviously so I would say there's so many good ways that you can find your group of people. One would be finding people who are in a similar season as you. That could be a mom group if you're a mom, like a MOPS, Moms of Preschoolers, or Momco group. I'm a part of one of those through our church right now. And it's been great, like connecting with other moms who are in similar stages of life as me. I also have been in small groups of, like young adult women, women who are in a similar age group, like similar stages of life, whether it's, like graduating high school, graduating college, getting into, like young married groups, things like that. So that's one way I would say is find something that you have a common interest. I feel like when you have a common interest with the people you're connecting with, it makes it easier to build those relationships because, at least you have one thing in common that you can bond over if you don't know anything else about the person to begin with. And then from there, hopefully you can get to know people and find your people to do life with from there. So I would say similar season of life, similar interests is a great place to start. But also, don't discount people who are different from you, different age groups, different interests, different seasons of life. Like we can learn so much from each other. And I really think that's one of the best ways we can grow spiritually is interacting with people who are different from us. We've been in small groups with other married couples who have been, divorced, remarried, blended families. And we've learned so much from couples who are, have grown kids, who don't have kids, or who have grandkids or empty nesters. We can learn so much from the perspectives of people who have been through seasons before us or different seasons and just offering a different perspective. I feel like sometimes we can stunt our own growth unintentionally by, like just only interacting with people who are in the same season of life or have the same interests as us. I would say one of the best ways that I've noticed growth in my life spiritually and just as a person as a whole is starting to interact with people who are different from me, different backgrounds, different season of life, maybe don't have kids, maybe have adopted kids or grown kids, finding people that you just feel you're willing to find that common ground if you don't see a similar interest right off the bat, if that makes sense. So again, consistency, finding a similar season, or just asking the Lord, like, who are my people? Just maybe try a group. I feel like sometimes it's a trial and error thing. Like I said, I've been in some groups where I'm like, this was fine for a season, but it wasn't life changing for me. So I'm going to switch it up next time there's a small group opportunity, or I'll try something different next time. But really, I think the times that I have grown the most in community with people through a small group is the people who are willing to let it be more than a small group. And what I mean by that is basically like, are you able to do life with these people when you're not meeting together? I've had friends that I've made through small group, like we've met through a small group initially, but then we start hanging out outside or we text each other and check in and like, hey, how are you doing? I'm praying for you today. Do you guys need anything this week? Do you want to meet for coffee? Do you want to take our kids on a play date? Small groups, I feel like are an invitation or like the first step into a deeper life in community. It's kind of like whatever you put into it, it's fine. Like obviously there are going to be different seasons as well where you're busy and you may not be able to spend as much time and maybe you have to prioritize family things. It looks different for everybody in every season. Find a small group where you can feel connected to people and then from there take it a step further whenever you are able to, because that's what's made some of the richest community experiences for me and building friendships is like it started out as a church group of friends who, like we started meeting in a small group and then we started, like actually doing life together. And, like there's other practical things like, are you actually studying the word? Like, I feel like that makes the small group effective where you're not just like talking or gossiping or it turns into just like a chit chat set, Are you actually growing together in the Lord? Are you praying together? Are you holding each other accountable? Are you helping each other grow? Are you being willing to be vulnerable when the opportunity arises to go that little bit deeper and make those connections? So those are kind of my thoughts on small groups. I feel like they are vital to the health of the body. It's just a different way to grow your faith, like we have to be in relationship with people as messy as it can be sometimes, to just like let people see our blind spots, letting people in. Anyway, I will get off my soapbox. That's my thought about small groups. Love them. Can't live without them. Okay, next question is advice for the waiting season when literally everything like house, money, job, relationship, health is really hard. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Like, I appreciate when you guys are willing to talk about the hard stuff with me because I feel like I yap about it all day long. But I know this is real life stuff and it's hard. Like, waiting seasons are hard. When everything feels hard, it's so easy to just feel tempted to give up, you know? My church just went through this series on John 15 called Remain. And it's talking about abiding in Christ, you know, like he's the vine, we're the branches. But there's a piece of that we often overlook and we don't want, right? The pruning process. And that's painful. So I think I want to share two main things that have resonated with me in this season of waiting and just feeling kind of hidden or kind of feeling like, Lord, I don't know what's really going on here. These are some things that I have clung to that have given me hope. So the first thing is sometimes God allows us to go through waiting so that things that are not necessary or that are maybe hindering growth can be stripped away. That is painful. That is hard. But one of our pastors who was speaking in this series shared about this concept that some of the higher quality vineyards and these winemakers will do called green harvesting. Basically, what this means is regularly these vine dressers will go through and they will cut off half of the healthy grapes that are being produced on the vine. There's nothing wrong with them, but the reason they do this is so that the vine can focus its energy and nutrients on the smaller cut of grapes that's still connected to the vine, which produces a richer quality wine at the end versus having a wine that has higher quantity of grapes, but less quality in each one, if that makes sense. So I feel like sometimes, as hard as it is to accept or realize in a waiting season, maybe God is like doing a thinning out process in our lives, letting us kind of declutter, whether it's things on our schedule, maybe it's things in our faith, like what if it's doubts or things that we're holding on to, fears, all of these things that maybe just need to be cut off, maybe it's things that we're saying yes to that are good even, but aren't the right things for this season. Or maybe it's just simply letting it be kind of a more drawn back season. I kind of talked about this in a previous episode where I was talking about feeling hidden or maybe forgotten or overlooked by God. A lot of this is how I've been feeling. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's not necessarily a season of intense suffering. It just feels hard. Like everything feels hard. It's like, I just want something to be easy. And I just want to tell you, I hear you, I see you, I really resonate with that. And it is so hard when you are in those seasons. But I would ask you to ask the Holy Spirit to show you, is there something here that you want me to focus more of my energy, like with those vines? Like, do you want me to slim down on some things or like cut away some of these things that are not the main things right now? So the few things can get more time, energy, attention, nutrients, growth, focused on those few things for a season. Maybe that's what it is. The second thing I want to say is if you are in a season of hard that is full of suffering and maybe it feels like really heavy and it's more of those where it's more than just a waiting season, it feels like really dark, heavy, like I can't see a light at the end of the tunnel. God, what are you doing? I just feel sad, lonely, frustrated, or disappointed in this season. Another speaker, Michelle Couchat, she goes to our church and she is fantastic. I heard her speak when she preached the sermon at our church a few weeks ago. She was talking about suffering. And she quoted, I want to say John Piper, don't quote me, but I think that's who. She was talking about how in one of his books he said, if you ask an unbeliever why they don't believe in God, one of the main reasons they will say is suffering. Like, why do bad things happen? Like, if God is real, why is all this bad stuff happening, right? That's why most people choose not to believe in God. But if you ask a Christian why they believe in God, one of the main answers you'll hear is that their suffering taught them to lean on the Lord. And that's why they choose to continue believing and trusting in the Lord. And so it's like, it's not a matter of if suffering will happen. In this life, we are guaranteed troubles. Jesus talks about that. But it's the way that we approach our seasons of hardship and suffering. That's what makes the real difference in our faith. And again, I just want to say I relate to this. I have been in some really dark seasons in the past few years. And honestly, lately, I've been in a hard season as well, like with mental health and things like that. And that's somebody asked about that as well, like mental health seasons. What do we do about that? And I can touch more on that in a minute. But again, I can link this message because honestly, it was one of the best sermons on suffering I've heard in a long time. But Michelle talked about as well how I think it was in Hebrews, Romans, one of those. She was talking about how the Holy Spirit comforts us and God is our comforter, right? But that word comfort in the original language from the Bible is comforter. And if you look at the middle of that word, the root is fort, like fortress. So when God is comforting us, it doesn't just mean he's making our life easy and taking away the struggling and the hardship and the pain. What it actually means is that he is coming in to strengthen us, to fortify us through the suffering and the pain. And again, I know no one wants that. I know we don't want life to be hard. Like we want God to comfort us. We want him to make it easy. Nobody wants struggles. Like it sucks to be in a season like that. But what I am learning lately as I study the word and as I go through my own questions with the Lord and my pain and my suffering, whatever that looks like for you, maybe, maybe this is just a season where God wants to refine you. Again, uncomfortable, but is the end result for you worth it? Like, this is really vulnerable, but I'll share from my experience what I'm processing through a season of hardship. I am asking myself, is it worth it to say yes to the process, even though it's painful? When it would be easier to just turn away and do my own thing. Like we have the ability to force things to happen sometimes. Like we can power through the hard season. We can do whatever we can to like make it easy and comfortable. But is it enough for us to endure suffering with the Lord, knowing that what's on the other side of our refinement will be worth it, even if it's not the result or the outcome that we want? Like that's the question. And I have wrestled with that so much because there are times when I'm like, I wish I just didn't care. I wish I didn't care so much. Like I wish that I could just live my life and let it be easy and not have to worry so much about like being in the process and refining and like just giving it all to the Lord and this daily act of surrender. Like I just want to give up. Like I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. I don't want any more testimonies or trials or hardships. What God is doing in us through our suffering is so beautiful and it's so worth it. And honestly, for me, it brings up this kind of heart check. Like through suffering is really how we develop our faith, right? And in the Bible, it talks about how our struggles produce endurance and our endurance produce character and our character produces hope. And these are the things that are happening as we go through hardships and the struggles and suffering in these hard seasons. That may not be what I feel like is an incredible result. It's like, I may want this specific outcome, but even if it's not that, is the other stuff worth it? Is it worth it if we are building our character, if we are building endurance, if our faith is being fortified, if our spirit is being built up in the Lord, and we are actually growing in relationship with Him? It's not a tangible thing, and that can be hard. I feel like in hard seasons, we want something that's tangible. We want something that's visible to cling to. And sometimes it's hard when we don't have that and it's easy to give up. But I just want to encourage you, if you are in a hard season, hopefully this is making sense. I didn't have anything planned for this. It's just like as usual. I feel like at this point, you guys know, I'm just going to like spew my consciousness and hopefully this makes sense and we're on the same page. And at the end, there's some sort of encouragement that I can tie up with a bow. But I just get it. I get it. Like in a hard season, we want something tangible and visible to cling to help us know that we're making progress, that we're moving forward. And when we don't have that kind of marker to gauge where we're at and like, is this going to be over soon, Lord? Like, how much longer is this suffering going to last? Is this hard season going to last? I think we just have to ask ourselves, and it may not be the answer you want to hear, but I think it's maybe just like, is the Lord enough? Is what you're building and what's being refined in you, like what's being developed right now in the hard season, is that enough? If it's not, like maybe ask yourself what would be, because sometimes we can get so frustrated and we don't even realize what we're chasing. And that ends up exhausting us even more and causing more frustration and disappointment and leading to burnout, like spiritually even. So I would say if you're in a hard season and you're struggling with either side of that spectrum, like maybe the Lord is pruning. Maybe the Lord is developing something through refinement. Neither one is easy, neither one is comfortable, but are you willing to trust him that it's worth it? That at the end, even if we don't get a certain outcome or result, he is enough. What he is building in us for his glory and for the world around us to experience him, is that enough? Okay. That's what I would say to that. And then I'm getting kind of rambly. Sorry, you guys. The kids are out of town with Christopher. And so I just got off work and I was like, let's just sit down and podcast. This will be great. So I'm kind of rambly in a rambly mood, but what's new? So let's talk about mental health for this last little bit and how we handle hard seasons of mental health in relation to our faith. Again, I feel like I've talked quite a lot about this throughout the past year or even before. Like I have come to terms with the fact that mental health may just always be a part of my story, and that's okay. Like I feel like we're human. There's always going to be struggles. We're never going to reach a point of arrival where we're never struggling with anything again. For me, a lot of it is mental health. So when I come to a season that seems to be just really dark and heavy, or I feel lonely, I start isolating, I feel really sad, I feel really discouraged about life, like lacking motivation to even show up, like whether it's for my own health, body, soul, or spirit, or like really, like community, whatever that looks like. Number one, I would say community actually is a huge thing that keeps me accountable and helps me, like stay known by the people in my life, I guess. Like it's really easy when we're struggling, whether it's at a season of mental health or anything, to kind of hide ourselves away. And it kind of like makes the load heavier, like because we're trying to carry it all on our own. But staying engaged in community, I really feel helps make the burden lighter, I guess. And so that for me is so relieving. I mean, I was hanging out with a friend. We had dinner a couple weeks ago and we were just sharing like really honestly about how hard life has been. But it was so amazing that at the end of that conversation we were able to circle it back around and say, like this all sucks and I don't understand it and I don't have an answer and I don't know if it's ever going to be over. But I still trust God. He's still good, and I'm gonna choose to keep following him, and we can do that together. And it was really encouraging just to be that real with someone who knows me and here at the end, like, okay, like, I still love you. I still see you. And like we can still be pursuing the Lord together imperfectly. And he's still with us, in the process. So community for sure. Like having someone in your life, whether it's a friend, whether it's a small group, a pastor, a therapist, find someone that can stay with you in the process for when those hard seasons come. Another thing is staying consistent with your time in the word and prayer. And I will say, honestly, this is something that can be hard for me at times because I don't want it to be an obligation thing where I'm just checking a box and it doesn't mean anything to me. But I think there's a difference between that kind of mentality and also like just being disciplined, right? I'm not just doing it just to do it. But also I kind of am. Like I'm showing up even when I don't want to. Does that make sense? Like there's a lot of it's a thin line there, but I feel like in hard seasons, I just have to like hold on to breadcrumbs. It's like what's the manna? What's the daily bread for today? Is it reading a chapter in the Bible? Is it meditating on one verse from my Bible app on my phone that says the verse of the day? It's just like, what can I do? Something to keep my spirit filled, to keep myself connected to the Lord in some way. And he is so faithful to meet us there. I was actually listening to a podcast episode with Havilah Cunnington. I love her. And she said something that was so profound about anxiety and worry and just, mental health in general. She was like, when we dwell on the past or we think about the future, we don't have grace for that. Like, of course, we're going to feel anxious. Of course, we're going to feel worried because God's mercy is new every morning. We have daily bread. His grace and his mercy for us is right now. And so when we take ourselves out of this present moment and start dwelling in the past or the future, of course we're going to feel lack of peace, lack of grace, lack of, like it's going to feel unsettled. And so I feel like as much as you can in those seasons, being present in the moment, whether it's going for a walk, finding things that make you feel grounded in this present season, because that's where the grace is for today. Like in Matthew 6, is it Matthew 6? I can't remember anything today, but where it talks about don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has troubles of its own. Like, let's focus on today. Give all your anxieties to the Lord because He cares about you. He cares for you. And in your hard season, turn to the Lord with wherever you're at today, whether that's like a prayer of God, help me on your drive to work, while you're folding the laundry, right before you go to bed, first thing when you wake up in the morning. Find ways to connect with the Lord. I saw this quote also. Oh man, gets me every time. It said, if you're holding on by a thread, make sure it's the hem of his garment. And I just think that's so powerful. I mean, obviously that's not scriptural, but just the idea of like, we can be hanging on by a thread in seasons where it feels really dark and heavy. And it's still enough because the power is not in us. Like Jesus Christ is our living hope, and he's in us through his Holy Spirit. And so, as long as we are connected to him, it doesn't matter how strong or powerful we are, he's the source of all of that. So, whatever you can, even if it's literally a thread on your darkest, hardest day, stay connected to the Lord, cry out to him, call out to him in whatever capacity you're able to. And the amazing thing is, he loves you so much, he'll meet you exactly where you are every single time. So, those are some things that help me during hard mental health seasons. And then also, like being honest about where I'm at. Like, if I'm having a hard time at work, if I need to take things off my plate, if I need to slow my pace a little bit, just like it's okay to scale back for a season. I feel like so often when we come to hard seasons or when life starts to transition and we aren't able to keep up with everything we had previously said yes to, it's okay to let things go. I wish I had known this so much sooner in my life, but I used to fight tooth and nail to stay productive because I thought if I wasn't being productive or achieving things, that I was just standing still. And that is so not the case. Rest is productive, it's effective, it actually fuels us and makes our work more efficient and effective. And so there are things like that where I think in hard seasons, we can easily forget that taking the time that you need to rest or heal, that is not going to slow you down at all. It's actually going to propel you forward because you can go so much farther healthy than you can when you're burnt out or struggling or trying to power through. It's just not a good situation, right? So, those are some things that I would say about that. This is getting kind of long already, so I'll wrap it up here. But I just want to say, as we go into the new year, I know I usually do like a prepping for New Year's episode, but I just wanted to end kind of on like this real note of like, if this year has been hard for you, man, I feel you. I get it. It has been a hard year for me too. And it's also been an amazing year. Like I have seen God move in so many ways. And I've just taken it all. Like, I'm so thankful for all of it because I know that God has so much in store for us through the next year, this next chapter of life, and this next season. And I'm just so grateful to have you along on the ride with me. So, again, thank you so much for being here with me this year. I am praying that your holiday season, that your new year is just so sweet and beautiful and filled with love and peace and rest and surrounded by people who love you and people that you love. And you just feel so ready to take on 2025 with confidence and just knowing like, we can do this. Like we're in it together, imperfectly in the process, building a faith that can last as we just continue growing in relationship with the Lord. So, anyway, that's all I got for you today. I'm pretty much out of sunlight. So, we'll end it here, but I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to another episode of the Byword Show. I love having you here, and your support truly means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, would you leave a quick review? It really helps our community grow and reach more women. If you want more, you can shop my books, Waking Up, Living Open, and Love Is on Amazon, and be sure to sign up for my email list so you always get the latest news. I can't wait to chat again soon, but in the meantime, be sure to come hang out with me on social media, and remember, I'm cheering you on.